Good day to everybody. I am PJ with Green's Funeral Home here in Dillon, and I want to come to you today on a matter that is important. A lot of people have asked questions about this particular subject, so I would figure on sharing it with you and maybe give you some insight to how this particular aspect of funeral service is done. And if you have any questions, you can certainly message me or give me a call and here at the funeral home, and maybe I can get you some answers. Okay? All right. Today's topic, we are going to talk about South Carolina death certificates. A death certificate is it's generated once a person is no longer among the living. And when I say generated, I mean that there are several agencies involved in the generated death certificates that you receive whenever you go to your prospective place to get your death certificates. And here in South Carolina, it's DHEC that you get your death certificates from. But there's a process in getting that done, and I'm going to try to explain it to you as best I can. The first thing that happens when a person has passed away and they're no longer among the living, the first people that realize that that has happened is either the doctor or the coroner. The person is going to be pronounced dead by the doctor or the coroner. They are the ones who will actually sign off on that happening. And it happens in different times, different places. We're just talking about South Carolina right now because different states do it different ways, okay? So we're just talking about South Carolina. But as I was saying, when a person passes away, that automatically, when the doctor or the coroner fills out paperwork, then they start the ball rolling to generate a death certificate. So once that's done, the funeral director gets notified by DHEC that the person has also passed away, and the coroner or the doctor, whichever one that's going to be in charge of that. It happens in stages. And the best way and easiest way for me to explain it to you, whenever someone passes away, the doctor puts in his part. They're coming from the patient's information. The doctor puts his part in. Then the funeral director or the funeral home puts in their information. A funeral director has to sign off on it, and also whoever the embalmer is, the embalmer has to sign off on it. In the case of it being a cremation, there may not be an embalmer. It depends on if you want that person embalmed or not. But let's go with the normal case. The doctor fills his part out. The coroner fills his part out, if there's a coroner. Then it goes to the funeral home. The funeral home fills their part out. And once everybody's put in their particular part, and it's done by computer, once everybody has submitted their information, then a death certificate is generated. And you can only get copies from DHEC whenever you submit, your information. Funeral homes in South Carolina do not issue death certificates. DHEC issues death certificates. If a funeral home gives you copies of a death certificate, that means he got it from DHEC. He had to get it from DHEC first and then give the copies to you. And this is not a free service that DHEC gives. There is a charge because there's several people involved and it's kind of complicated. So they charge for their services. But you can get copies. Now, on the funeral director side, when you first come into the funeral home to give your information to your funeral director, we have what's called a South Carolina worksheet. That worksheet gives the funeral director all the information that he should need to complete the death certificates. That's why you find out who your informant is. The funeral director will say, okay, who's going to be the informant and who's going to be the person that we're going to look to give us all the information, correct information. Because once you give us that information and we put that information in the computer for them to generate the death certificates, getting that information changed is not an easy task. So the best thing to do is when you're giving your funeral director the information for the death certificates, give him the right information, because you, the informant who is giving the information, you have to sign that worksheet, that form, because if something is not right on that form, the first thing DHEC is going to ask is, we want to get a copy of the worksheet. And they're going to look at who signed it. If nobody has signed it, then they look at the funeral director and say, why didn't you get this signed? So what we do is we take down the information, we put all the information on the worksheet, then I will turn around and give it back to you and tell you to look it over, be sure that the information is correct, and then sign your name at the bottom. So I'll have your signature that you are the one, in fact, who gave me that information. That's the correct way of doing it. That's how we do it here, because the less mistakes you have, the better off you are. And they don't like to, well, I won't say they don't like to, but they just rather not deal with a lot of mistakes when it comes to a death certificate, because a death certificate is final. And once it's done, it's pretty much done. And it's not impossible to get it changed, but you have to go through a lot of red tape. Now, speaking of a death certificate, before I forget, I have my little cheat notes here, so bear with me. After 1 year, after a person has been dead 1 year, we, the funeral director, don't have immediate access to that death certificate. What happens is, after a year, if there have to be any changes made, if you see that there was a mistake made, they are requiring that the informant, the person who gave the funeral director the information, you have to go in to DHEC and make those changes in person, not on the phone, not just by hearsay. You have to go in, show your identification, show proof that you are who you say you are, and you have to make those changes in person. So it's very important that you get this right the first time, so that, a year goes by pretty fast. So you look a year later and you want to get some paperwork done, and you see where information is not correct, then you got to go to DHEC in person and make those changes, because the funeral director has no access to that information after a year. Okay? All right. I hope everybody understands me. If they don't, like I said, message me, and we will try to get you the answer that you need. And I'm looking to be sure I haven't forgotten anything here. As I said before, once everybody puts in all the information that's required of them, the official death certificate on their stationery and with their seal on it will be printed at DHEC, not the funeral home. It will be printed at DHEC so that you may get your copies. Funeral homes do not issue death certificates. DHEC issues death certificate. And you have to have the required information if you are the informant. You can't just go over there and say, oh, I'm the one who is in charge and I want to get a death certificate. It doesn't work that way. If you're going to go over to DHEC to get copies of a death certificate, you need to have your identification. You need to be able to prove who you are, and then they will issue you a death certificate. And I think the information they also require the date of death of the person's correct name, and when they died. You got to have all this information if you're going to go and get a copy of the death certificate. Okay? Here at the funeral home, usually we can tell by going in on the computer, we can tell you if the death certificate is in fact ready or not. But if you want to go get copies, you have to go to DHEC and not get an official copy from the funeral home. Okay? All right. I think that's about it. Today is not going to be a long one. I just wanted you to have that information because so many people are misinformed, and I want to make sure you get the correct information. And this is a way of getting it out to the general public so that you can do what you need to do and you know what you're doing. Okay? So, I hope everybody is doing well. And as I always say before I go, be kind to one another, be careful, and be aware of your surroundings, especially in these days and times, because anything is possible. So until next time, and until our next video, you guys take care.